The observation deck of the Meridian hummed with the soft pulse of distant engines. I stood alone, watching Europa's ice fields glitter beneath us, when I heard her approach. Kaelin. The Zytherian ambassador assigned to our joint mission. She moved with an otherworldly grace that made Earth's gravity seem like a suggestion rather than a law. Her skin held a subtle iridescence, like moonlight on water, and her eyes were the deep violet of nebulae I'd only seen through telescopes. "Commander Reeves," she said, her voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate in my chest. "You avoid the briefing room." I turned, caught off guard. "Just needed air." "Well, recycled air." She tilted her head, studying me with an intensity that made my pulse quicken. On Zythera, I'd learned, direct eye contact was reserved for moments of complete honesty, or challenge. "Your crew fears me," she said simply. I couldn't deny it. Her people had been myth until 3 years ago, advanced, enigmatic, selective about their interactions with humanity. Having one aboard felt like hosting a goddess. "They're just adjusting," I offered. "And you?" She stepped closer, and I caught her scent, something like ozone and flowers that didn't exist on Earth. "Do you fear me, Jackson Reeves?" Her use of my first name surprised me. "I respect you." Diplomatic. A slight curve touched her lips, the Zytherian equivalent of a smile, I'd been told. But not honest. Over the following weeks, our mission took us through the outer colonies, negotiating mining rights and cultural exchanges. Kaelin was brilliant during negotiations, but it was the quiet moments that undid me. The way she'd find me in the observation deck. How she'd ask questions about Earth, about music, about why humans laughed, about love. "Your species bonds through such temporary means," she said one night, both of us watching Jupiter's storms rage. "Decades seem like heartbeats to my people. We live centuries. Does that not make your connections feel fragile?" "Maybe that's what makes them matter," I said. "We know they won't last forever, so we hold them tighter." She looked at me then, really looked, and I felt pinned by those violet eyes. "Is that why you divorced? You could not hold tight enough?" The personal file breach should have angered me, but her tone held only curiosity. "Something like that." She wanted children. "You wanted the stars." Not a question. The stars seemed safer. I smiled bitterly. Less chance of failing something that can't look back at you with disappointment. Kaelin's hand moved toward mine, stopped inches away. Touch between our species required explicit consent, their telepathic sensitivity made casual contact overwhelming. "May I?" she asked softly. I nodded. Her fingers brushed mine, and warmth flooded through me, not just physical, but emotional. I felt her curiosity, her loneliness, her fascination. "Not so different," she whispered. "We both chose the distance between stars over the risk of closeness." The moment stretched, charged with possibility, before she withdrew her hand and left me trembling in the darkness. The attack came without warning. Pirates from the scattered belt ambushed us near Callisto, desperate raiders who saw the Meridian as a prize worth dying for. Our shields held, but the engineering deck took damage. As acting commander during Captain Silva's medical leave, the crisis fell on my shoulders. Kaelin found me in the aftermath, coordinating repairs while crew members rushed past with burned components and emergency supplies. "You should rest," she said, appearing beside me like smoke. "I should do my job." My words came out sharper than intended. 30 hours without sleep had left me raw. "You're bleeding." She gestured to my arm where shrapnel had carved a path through my uniform. I'd barely noticed. Medical bay is overwhelmed with worse. Without asking permission this time, Kaelin took my arm. Her touch sent that same warmth through me, but stronger now, purposeful. I watched, fascinated, as the wound began to close, her skin glowing faintly. "Your medical training didn't mention this ability," I said, slightly breathless. "Because humans would expect us to heal them constantly. We reserve it for—" She paused, meeting my eyes. "For those who matter." The corridor felt suddenly smaller. Her hand remained on my arm even after the wound sealed. Why? I asked. Do I need a reason beyond preventing your death from infection and stubbornness? Kaylin. Come. She tugged gently. There is something I must show you. She led me to her quarters, a space I'd never entered. Zytherian privacy customs were strict. Inside, the walls held what looked like living constellations, glowing patterns that shifted and flowed. Memory maps, she explained, seeing my wonder. Every place I've been, every person who mattered. We cannot forget, so we honor what we wish to remember. I approached slowly, seeing worlds I couldn't name, faces both humanoid and distinctly alien. It's beautiful. It's lonely. Her voice dropped. Centuries of memory, Jackson. Everyone I've loved has become dust except in these lights. My family thinks me foolish for spending time with humans. What are decades to us? Why invest in something so brief? I turned to face her. But you're here anyway. Because perhaps brief is better than empty. She stepped closer, close enough that I could see the subtle patterns in her iridescent skin. Because when you look at me, you don't see a curiosity or a political asset. You see me. Even when you try to hide it. My heart hammered. That obvious? To me. Her hand rose, hovering near my face. May I? Yes. Her palm cupped my cheek, and suddenly I felt everything, her attraction, her fear, her desperate loneliness that spanned centuries. But also her joy in our conversations, the way she'd started measuring time by our encounters in the observation deck, how my smile made something in her chest tighten the same way humans described heartache. I feel it too, I whispered, hardly believing I was saying it. After that night, everything changed and nothing changed. We maintained professional distance during duty hours, but the observation deck became our refuge. She'd find me there during Gamma shift, when the skeleton crew left us mostly alone among the stars. Tell me about her, Kaylin said one evening, 3 weeks after the attack. Your former wife. I should have deflected, but her honesty deserved mine. Melissa. We met at the academy, both ambitious, both determined to reach the stars. We thought wanting the same thing meant we wanted it together. But somewhere between assignments, we became roommates with rings. The intimacy faded. She wanted roots, I wanted to keep moving. By the end, we were strangers who'd memorized each other's coffee orders. Kaylin nodded slowly. On Zythera, we have bonding ceremonies that last decades, extended courtships where partners explore every dimension of compatibility before committing to centuries together. The idea of humans marrying after mere years terrifies us. Maybe that's wise. I smiled ruefully. We certainly rush into things. And yet. She shifted closer, her shoulder almost touching mine. Your poets write that love is not rational. That it strikes like lightning, unexpected and consuming. You've been reading Earth poetry? I wanted to understand you. Her voice softened. Understand what makes humans willing to risk such pain for such brief joy. The weight of that admission settled between us. I turned to face her, finding those violet eyes already on me. Can I ask you something? I said. And will you answer honestly? Always. I took a breath, steadying myself. What do you see when you look at me? Not as a human, not as a commander, but as you. What do you see? She held my gaze for a long moment, something shifting in her expression, vulnerability I'd never seen from her. Then she asked. May I show you? At my nod, both her hands framed my face. The connection flooded through me, deeper than before, more intimate. I saw myself through her eyes, the furrow between my brows when I concentrated, the way my hands moved when explaining concepts, how my rare laughs transformed my face. But more than that, I felt her response to these things, desire mixing with admiration, fascination bleeding into something tender and frightening. She saw beauty in my humanness, my imperfection, my mortality itself. When she withdrew her hands, we were both breathing harder. Look into my eyes, she said, voice barely above a whisper, and tell me the truth. Do you find me attractive? By human standards, by any standards, am I? She paused, vulnerability making her glow fluctuate. Am I sexy to you? I couldn't help it, I smiled. Not from amusement, but from the absurdity of this magnificent being doubting her effect on me. Kaylin, I said, letting every ounce of honesty show, you're the most captivating being I've ever encountered. When you walk into a room, everything else becomes background noise. Your intelligence stuns me, your grace undoes me, and yes, gods, yes, you're incredibly, undeniably sexy. For a heartbeat, she simply stared. Then that musical laugh escaped her, genuine delight that made her whole form shimmer brighter. Honest, she said, wonder in her voice. The tension that had coiled between us for weeks finally broke. She moved first, closing the distance, her forehead touching mine in a Zytherian gesture of deep affection. This is unwise, she whispered. Probably. You will age while I remain. Decades will pass, and I will watch you fade. I know. And still you want this? Don't you? I pulled back enough to meet her eyes. Isn't that why you asked? Why you've been coming here every night? Her hand slid to my shoulders. I have not felt this way in 80 years. The last human I. She stopped, started again. He died an old man while I remained young. I swore I would not endure that pain again. Then walk away, I said, even as my heart hammered. I'll understand. I cannot. Her admission came raw and real. I have tried. Every logical argument, every certainty about the inevitable heartbreak, none of it matters when you smile at me. The kiss, when it came, was nothing like earth kisses. Kaylin's lips held warmth that spread through my entire body, her species' telepathic nature making every touch a conversation. I felt her desire mixed with fear, her joy tangled with grief for a future loss, and beneath it all, the depth of her longing. My hands found her waist, feeling the subtle differences in her form, the way her body moved like water given shape. She made a sound against my mouth, something between a sigh and a melody, and pressed closer. My quarters, she breathed, pulling back just enough to speak. We cannot, here, someone might. I understood. Whatever this was between us, it would cause complications. Fraternization between human officers and alien dignitaries could trigger diplomatic incidents. We made it to her quarters without being seen, the door sealing behind us with blessed privacy. The memory maps on her walls cast us in shifting light, blues and golds and colors Earth had no names for. I should tell you, Kaylin said, fingers working at my uniform seals, that physical intimacy for my people is more intense than yours. You'll feel what I feel, experience my pleasure as your own. It can be overwhelming. Show me, I said, helping her with the stubborn clasps. She pulled my shirt free, her hands sliding over my skin. Everywhere she touched, warmth bloomed, not burning, but like sunlight made tangible. I gasped, and she smiled, reading my response in the connection between us. Sensitive, she observed, her voice taking on a lower register that made something tighten in my core. Your turn, I managed, finding the fastening of her garment. The fabric slid away, revealing skin that seemed to glow from within. Her form was both familiar and alien, humanoid enough to be recognizable, different enough to make me forget every other being I'd touched. Where humans had curves and angles, she flowed like mercury. I traced the line of her collarbone, watching the iridescence shift under my fingers. She shivered, and I felt her pleasure spike through the connection, her response amplifying my own arousal in a feedback loop that made us both groan. The bed, she whispered urgently. I cannot stand much longer. We tumbled onto the Zytherian sleeping platform, softer than earth beds, conforming to our bodies. Our remaining clothes disappeared in urgent movements, hands mapping new territory, mouths exploring skin that tasted of starlight. When she rolled me onto my back and straddled me, her hair falling around us like a curtain, I saw the memory maps reflected in her eyes, centuries of loneliness finally breaking against this moment. Jackson, she breathed, positioning herself above me. Are you certain? In answer, I pulled her down into another kiss, and she took me inside her with a sound that was definitely not human, something resonant that made the walls seem to hum in sympathy. The sensation defied description. Every nerve ending seemed connected to hers, pleasure doubling and redoubling between us. I felt myself through her perception, every texture, every pulse, every point of contact amplified by her telepathic sensitivity. And I felt her, vulnerable and powerful and utterly undone by what we were doing. She moved above me, setting a rhythm that had my hands fisting in the sheets. Her skin grew brighter, luminescence increasing with her arousal, until we were bathed in light that painted the room in impossible colors. Oh gods, I gasped, feeling the pressure building, not just in my body but in the space between us, the connection growing stronger with every thrust. Look at me, she commanded, breathless and glowing. When it happens, Jackson, look at me. I forced my eyes open, meeting her violet gaze, and fell into it completely. Her pleasure crashed through me the same moment mine exploded through her, a perfect circuit of sensation that left us both crying out, her light flaring so bright I should have been blinded but instead saw everything, every star she'd ever visited reflected in her eyes, every memory, every hope, and threading through it all, us, this moment, burning bright enough to matter despite its brevity. We collapsed together, tangled and trembling, the aftershocks rippling between us for long moments. Kaylin pressed her face to my neck, and I felt moisture there, tears, I realized. She was crying. Hey, I whispered, stroking her hair. Are you? 80 years, she said against my skin. 80 years I have been alone, and you made me forget it in minutes. How is that possible? I held her tighter, feeling the weight of those decades in ways I couldn't fully comprehend. Maybe time doesn't matter as much as we think. Maybe it's not about how long, but how much you feel while you're there. She laughed wetly, pulling back to look at me. In the dimmer glow of her post-passion luminescence, she looked younger somehow, or perhaps just less guarded. Very philosophical for someone who just experienced Cytherian intimacy for the first time. She kissed me softly. Usually humans need several minutes to form coherent thoughts afterward. Give me time, I grinned. The existential crisis might still be coming. I would feel it if it were. Her hand traced patterns on my chest. Instead, I feel contentment, joy, and something that frightens me. What? Hope, she whispered. That this could be more than one perfect night. That perhaps brief and meaningful is enough. I captured her hand, bringing it to my lips. Stay with me. However long we have, stay. Until your hair turns white and your eyes dim? Her voice cracked. Until I must watch you fade while I remain? Yes. All of it. Every moment. I met her gaze steadily. I know it ends. But Kaylin, what if that's exactly what makes it worth having? She studied me for a long moment, then pressed her forehead to mine again, that gesture of deep affection that I was learning to treasure. Then I will stay, she said simply. And when the end comes, you will be here, she touched her chest, in my memory maps. Burning bright. Forever. News of our relationship spread through the meridian faster than I'd hoped and slower than I'd feared. Captain Silva, returned from medical leave, called us both to her ready room with an expression that promised a difficult conversation. I'm not going to lecture you about protocol, she began, settling behind her desk while Kaylin and I stood at attention. Frankly, relationships between crew members happen, and the regulations about interspecies dating are vague at best. But? I prompted, recognizing the setup. But command is going to have opinions. They already sent 3 priority messages asking about the situation aboard my ship. Silva sighed, looking older than her 50 years. They want Kaylin transferred to the Horizon when we reach Titan Station next month. Different diplomatic mission, different command structure, clean break. I felt Kaylin stiffen beside me. They have no authority over my assignment, she said, voice carefully controlled. The Cytherian Council placed me here specifically to work with Commander Reeves on the cultural exchange protocols. Which are nearly complete, Silva countered gently. They're not wrong that this creates complications. What happens when we need to make first contact with another species? Will Reeves be impartial, or will he be thinking about keeping his partner safe? What happens when one of you has to make a command decision that might endanger the other? The questions hung heavy in the air. They were fair concerns, ones I'd been avoiding thinking about. With respect, Captain, I said slowly, those same concerns exist with any crew relationship. When Lieutenant Park and Ensign Morrison got married last year, no one suggested transfers. They're both human. Both operating under the same chain of command and expected lifespans. Silva's expression softened. I'm not trying to be cruel. I'm trying to protect you both from what command will do if they decide this is a problem. A transfer now, voluntary, looks better than a forced reassignment later. Kalen's hand found mine, a public gesture that would have been unthinkable weeks ago. I will not leave, she said firmly. If they wish to create an incident with the Zytherian Council by removing me against my will, they may try. They will fail. Silva looked between us, something like sympathy in her eyes. Take the rest of the day. Think about it. I'll hold off responding to command until tomorrow. We ended up in the observation deck, our refuge once again. Earth hung in the distance, a blue marble I'd soon be reporting to in person, along with whatever tribunal command had arranged. You should go to the horizon, I said quietly. This is my career. My problem. No reason for it to damage the cultural exchange. Kalen turned to me, eyebrows raised. Did you mean anything you said in my quarters? Or was that merely post-coital sentiment? Of course I meant it, but... Then stop being noble. She cupped my face, forcing me to meet her eyes. I have spent 80 years being careful. Following protocols. Maintaining appropriate distance from humans because investing in relationships that last mere decades seemed foolish. And perhaps it is foolish. But I would rather have 30 years of foolish joy with you than another century of wise loneliness. 30 years, I echoed, the number hitting differently now. Barely a tenth of what she'd already lived. If we are fortunate. Her thumb stroked my cheek. Perhaps 50 if human medicine continues advancing. Either way, not enough. Never enough. But Jackson, it will be more than I have had in so long. I pulled her close, feeling her warmth seep into me. Command is going to make this difficult. Let them try. She laughed softly. I am not some junior diplomat they can push around. I am one of the 7 voices of Zythera. They want a cultural exchange? Then they will learn that Zytherian culture includes choosing one's own partners, regardless of species or political convenience. The 7 voices? I pulled back. You never mentioned that I am essentially royalty by human standards? It seemed irrelevant. She smiled at my expression. Did you think they would send someone unimportant to make first contact with humanity? I have negotiated treaties across 3 galaxies, Jackson. A few human admirals do not frighten me. I couldn't help but laugh. I've been sleeping with alien royalty and didn't know it. You have been sleeping with me. The titles are just noise. She grew serious. But yes, those titles mean I have leverage. Use them if needed. I do not care about politics or propriety. I care about you. The tribunal, when it came, was exactly as tedious as expected. 3 admirals, 2 diplomats, and a xenopsychologist spending hours debating regulations, precedents, and potential complications. Kalen attended via hologram, radiating authority I'd never seen her display before. Let me clarify the situation, she said, interrupting the 3rd hour of circular arguments. Commander Reeves and I have formed a pair bond. By Zytherian law, this is recognized as a permanent union unless dissolved by mutual consent. Any attempt to separate us without that consent will be viewed as an act of aggression against Zytheria itself. Are you threatening us? Admiral Chen demanded. I am explaining consequences. Kalen's voice remained calm. You wanted cultural exchange. This is what it looks like. Our species do not compartmentalize personal and professional lives the way humans do. You will accept our bond, or you will damage relations with our entire civilization. Choose wisely. In the end, they chose wisely. I received a formal reprimand for my file, Kalen received a strongly worded letter about diplomatic protocols, and we both got to remain on the Meridian. Politics, for once, worked in our favor. 5 years later, I stood in the observation deck with silver threading through my hair, premature aging from stress and radiation exposure during a crisis near Jupiter's moons. Kalen stood beside me, unchanged except for the deeper contentment in her eyes. "You're graying," she observed, running fingers through my hair. "It suits you. Easy for you to say. You'll look like this when I'm 80. And I will think you beautiful then too." She kissed me softly. "Though perhaps we should discuss retirement soon. I believe Earth has some lovely beaches you have mentioned wanting to visit." Retirement? I'm only 43. And I am 206. We could spend your remaining decades exploring your home planet rather than the stars. She leaned into me. "I have seen enough of the universe. I would like to focus on experiencing life with you, the small moments you humans treasure. Morning coffee. Sunset walks. Growing old, even if only one of us does the aging." I thought about it, trading the vastness of space for the intimacy of a shared life on Earth. A year ago, it would have felt like giving up. Now it felt like choosing the thing that mattered most. "Beaches," I agreed. "And mountains. And every place I've ever wanted to show you." "Deal." She sealed it with a kiss that still made my pulse race after 5 years. "Though Jackson?" "Yeah?" "Thank you for smiling that night I asked my foolish question. Everything good in these years traces back to your honesty in that moment." I smiled again, the same way I had then, unable to resist, unwilling to hide what I felt. Best question anyone ever asked me. We stood together, watching stars that seemed a little less distant now. The universe was vast, cold, and largely empty. But here, in this small space, we'd found warmth worth crossing any distance to protect. Brief, yes. Temporary by her standards. But burning bright enough to matter. And in the end, wasn't that what love always was? A choice to say yes anyway, despite knowing how the story ends, to believe that meaning isn't measured in duration but in depth. The stars could wait. We had a life to build, however long it lasted. That was more than enough.